Okay, hello. This is our submission to the Cosmos Hackathon for the Earth State Challenge. And what we've done is we've created a environment, a Docker Compose environment that allows developers to easily experiment with, configure, and deploy um, custom actions for the IXO assistant. And the IXO assistant is based on this chatbot environment called Rasa. And basically Rasa has two things. There's the Rasa server, which does NLP, so natural language processing on chatbot input, to decide how it wants to respond, and then based on those inputs, it can trigger actions, and basically you can write custom actions that's do custom stuff and reply in a way depending on the input and the way it's processed. So you have to configure all that, and it's a little bit complicated. But basically, the Rasa thing, this is where we configure our server and we define, okay, like what NLP are we listening, not what natural language processing stuff are we like listening to. So we have some intents around um, voting, did to address, remembering a did. So a bunch of stuff, we kind of try to define it. And then you define some rules. So rules are like, okay, based on some intent that the chatbot, the Rasa stuff has picked up, what action do we want to trigger? And then some other things that we included in here, because we found it useful as we were developing this, is we included a notebook server. So this means you can like test your Python code really quickly. So like when you're writing a chatbot, for example, we had some problems writing the Esri chatbot. So Esri is something that polls some geocoding thing and tries to get back some map data. And we had some real problems trying to get that map data into an image format that we could then render in the chatbot UI. And we actually didn't manage to get that working, but by adding this notebook playground, which also gets spun up when you start the Docker Compose, you can really easily sort of test this code, right? So you can try and get your code working correctly first in a notebook, and then you can add that code into your chatbot. Okay, so let me just show you this working really quickly. To run it, it's really simple. You just run Docker Compose up. Okay, so now that's started. Sorry, let me just find it all over the place here. Okay, so you can see this is running. These are the processes that we've got running. So we have like the Rasa server, which is doing NLP processing. We have the custom action chatbot, which is a server running custom actions. And then we have, the custom action server. Then we have the chatbot, which is the UI that I'll show you in a minute. And then we have the notebook. And so once you've got that started, the first thing you'll need to do, and you need to do this once or every time you add new intents or things that your Rasa server needs to process. So we've execed into the Docker Compose, and we just need to run Rasa train. And this is, like all the machine learning stuff is handled for you, but you have to train the models so that it can understand any new data that you want to put in. So basically, when I've, like in this, in sorry, not in here. In here, when I define some data that I'm looking for, I'm parsing, I need to train my model to understand this input. And it doesn't just understand this, these are just examples, right? It kind of extrapolates from the examples to understand a wider variety of, natural language. Okay, so that's done, right? Now I can show you this is the UI that we just added, right? So like it's all very good having your chatbot backend sort of running, but this is the IXO assistant that you would typically have in an IXO application, right? So when a evaluator is evaluating a claim, they can open up the assistant and they can call some of these custom actions, right? Like we can define some messages that the IXO assistant knows how to respond to, and those messages can include data points. So like here's some that we just included, right? So a good one is from find address. So this converts a did using the IXO system into an IXO address. And this was taken from the IXO assistance repo, just to be clear, but we did have to make some changes to get this to work. I think it's a nice example of what you can do. I'm not sure if we got this one fully working, but let's check. No. So I think there's some issues with that. So we had some problems really. That it was a challenging task. A good one that we also had problems with, but is you can see the power of this is we're saying, okay, call this Esri function, and Esri is a really powerful mapping service that includes data about like fire, weather, heat, pollution. So we can imagine how we could expand this to get some really complicated, really data and pipe that into an evaluator's sort of processing with just a few commands. Um, yeah, that's about it, really. That's as far as we got, unfortunately. I think the real value in this project isn't the custom actions that we managed to implement. It is the foundation that would allow any developer to kind of pick up where we left off and develop and test their custom actions. And we really recommend this tutorial. It's great in terms of like how to configure custom actions. Um, and if you just get started in here, like writing a custom action is as simple as defining it in a file, like similar to this, and specifying the NLP that's gonna trigger that action based on a message that comes in. And then simply spinning up the Docker Compose should initiate that, render that action. It's like all the configuration is taken care of now. It's just a case of actually writing the custom actions. And I think for us, like it was really powerful to see how these custom actions could be used in the IXO flow, right? We didn't get that far into actually implementing them, but the fact that you could see how like just by clicking this button, some evaluator would be able to draw on all these data points and then use those data points to make a decision about whether some claim of an earth state change, like I planted 100 trees, like here's where they are, here's a location on the map, you can go and look at them based on a satellite image that I don't control. The evaluator can have good confidence that this claim is legitimate, accurate, and same for like pollution data, or basically a custom action allows you to pull in data from any accessible API as long as you've implemented that custom action. So it's really whatever you can imagine and condensed into a chatbot flow should be accessible within this IXO system. So I think future looking, like the IXO system is a really powerful tool for the IXO ecosystem. And I look forward to hopefully this is going to be useful for triggering innovation around developers coming along and saying, hey, I would love this functionality. I think I know how to do it. Like, here's a great place to start to look at integrating chatbot functionality.